Welcome to the View Magazine's Rebel Justice podcast. I'm Trystan Kent. Happy New Year, everyone. It's our first episode of the new year and the fourth part in our Refugee series, so be sure to catch up on the last 3 episodes if you haven't already. Today, we'll be speaking with Lucky Khambule, a refugee from South Africa living in Ireland and founder of MASI, the movement of asylum seekers in Ireland. Part of what we'll be discussing is direct provision, the system in Ireland refugees face on making their claims for asylum. For any such people seeking refuge, the government will directly provide the essentials of food and accommodation, but prohibit just about any means of building a life beyond that. A record of nearly 12,000 people are currently living in this limbo, unable to get a job and access any sort of meaningful income, while waiting months, if not years, to know whether their claim will be successful or not. Lucky joins us today to tell us about the impact direct provision can have on someone, as well as some of the amazing ways that MASI have been fighting back. Lucky Khambule, thank you so much for coming onto the Rebel Justice podcast. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing well. Thank you.
So can you tell us a bit more about your background and the journey you went on towards setting up and founding MASI?
Well, firstly about myself, I come from South Africa. I came in Ireland in 2013. I'm almost 10 years now in this country. And I came here as an international protection applicant at that time. And I was also subjected to what they call here the direct provision, whereby the people that are new coming to seek protection, then they are placed at a system called direct provision, where then they are housed in hostels and given food, 3 meals a day and a bed. And when I came, it was all that was important to whoever, officials, owners. That was the most important thing to them, that people that came must have a room and must have food to eat, and disregard the fact that people need also to live. And it was a system at that time that robbed people of their freedom. It robbed people of their simple dignity. The system was so much degrading, and you were not allowed to work, and you were not allowed to study. There was nothing for people to aspire to. There was no hope. There's a difference between a working person who is not even allowed to look for work. So there's nothing that you are waking up in the morning or going to bed knowing that you have to wake up. I looked into this. I said, it did not make sense to me that people can just sit and not do anything, just wait for many, many years. And then we were given at that time 19 euros, 10 cents to live on every week. You know, a child would get about 9 euros. And even then, there was nothing much you can do. You will buy a top up for 5 euro, and there's nothing more you can do with that. If you buy coffee, you can't even go and buy a meal for children, you know. It was a frustrating thing. Also, the most important thing, or the most frustrating thing, was that more than the system was oppressing us, the people who were meant to protect us, to guide us, or to give services to us were the most cruel people. They were the most cruel people in terms of making sure that we know that they have the power, they have the final say. So you cannot say anything. If you say anything, they will tell you that they will report you to the Justice Department and you can be deported. They will tell you that we can even transfer you from here to wherever, you know. So it's something that paralyzed the people's minds in terms of ability to do anything, because once you start doing this, they will tell you that these are the consequences. There was what they call a rule book or a house rules, a kind of 45 pages that is telling all what you cannot do, this, you cannot, all those rules. And those people were so strong in terms of implementing those rules. And people were blinded in terms of not knowing what their rights are, you know. So when I came, I was transferred, because here, what happens when you first apply, you are placed at a reception center, which is called Palseskin in Finglas. And then from there, you are then dispersed in all other counties around the country. Then I was transferred to a place called Cork, Kinsale Road Accommodation Center, where I really tasted the really cruel and gruesome way of treating people. And slowly then, because of what I just said in terms of people being afraid to speak up, well, I started with about 2 or 3 guys to plant the idea of organizing ourselves as the center. As the center. We first organized ourselves in the center. Then we started holding meetings with a small group of people to get the idea, especially for those that are old, in terms of older in the system, having already been cooked by the system, to change those people's minds to see that there is something that people can do to challenge the small little things. As we wanted to challenge the living conditions so that it's something that people would feel that they have something to fight for. Could it be food? Could it be the visitations? Could it be the playground? Could be something for the kids? All the things that people would need in a communal setting. So we would put those things together and make people to have a say in those grievances that we put there. So we started mobilizing until everyone in the center was in one page with us. And then we staged a protest because we knew that these were not going to be done until we forced them to do so. So then we decided on the 15th of September of 2014, we closed that center completely. We took over the center and we chased everybody away from the staff and management. We took over and we stood at the gate and they could not come in. We stood like that for 10 days while we were negotiating these demands that we were talking about with the actual department. So I'm saying 10 days, 10 nights. We only stopped or allowed them once we had a written confirmation of all the demands that we have put it down that they must be fulfilled. Only after that, we said, then you can come back and start working. And the people, when they came back, they looked at us differently. They took us seriously now because we did something that has never been done in Ireland in any sector before, whereby the people locked the staff and did not give them access to their building for 10 days. It never happened before. And then from there, we started now mobilizing other centers. We started to move to other centers to share our story and our victory to the other people. And others also started protesting and started to see the light, so to speak. So we then, as we were mobilizing throughout the country, we then decided that because we were doing that as the residents of Cork, and we didn't want to minimize it to Cork, we wanted to nationalize it. And then we sat and decided, what can we call ourselves that will include everybody? And then we came with this name of the Movement of Asylum Seekers in Ireland, in short, MASI. That's how MASI was born out of that protest. It still believes and its values is about agitating, it's about challenging the status quo. It's about the plight of the people that seek protection to know and understand that asylum is a process that is legal in line with the Refugee Convention of 1951, that you cannot be able to deprive people that seek protection. So we then had a campaign that was to end direct provision, the campaign to make sure that people have got the right to work, to campaign that people have got the right to education, to campaign for faster processing of asylum claims, the right to drive, the right to have a life and bank accounts, because all those things were not there. So through our campaign all these years, in 2018, the right to work was given and it had the restrictions. We still campaigned about those restrictions. And they came with a much better approach whereby now, if you are new in the country after 6 months, you do get the right to work, which is what is happening even now. So that's one of the key areas of our success in terms of the people that are new in the country, that when they come, at least they have that hope that at least it's going to just be 6 months. After 6 months, you have got the right to look for work and also to further your studies. There are people now that get into education, whether it's short courses or third level education. There is awareness about the fact that people need to continue to live even if they've come in this country. We face so many issues. So the government in 2019 embarked on a research in terms of what is it that they can do to improve the system and also to find a way to replace the system with a system which will be seen to be more humane, so to speak. So all we wanted for them is to get rid of this oppression, of this power that is given to the department that is called the IPAS. IPAS is the department that deals with the accommodation side of things. So there are people that they put there who ill treat people in such a way that people do cry because of the way that you are being spoken to. Like you speak to, like you're speaking to a small child when you're speaking to an adult, you know. So there are so many issues that we are addressing now, the mental health issues, the gender-based violence issues that are happening and ignored in direct provision, the issue of education in terms of senior level education. So all are these issues. And one of the things that we do is to promote integration because these centers are hidden, so to speak. And we are bringing the real people out of these centers to meet with the local communities so that they can share in terms of integration because we believe that integration is a two-way street. We integrate with each other, not one sector integrate with the other and none with the other. So we need to know our culture, understand our different cultures so that we can respect those cultures. If you don't know, you will always treat me with your own perspective of things. You know, you think you know, but you don't know. But if you take your time to know my culture, my beliefs, my values, I know yours, we meet halfway, we respect each other, and then we can move on in terms of working together, understanding those cultures. You know, when you come from that point of view, you can be able to solve the problems. There's a problem of housing here. There's a problem of people who are given their papers, but they cannot move outside direct provision because there is no system that is in place for smooth transition from this hostel dwelling kind of setup mindset to in the mainstream living in the housing community. That doesn't exist. So those are the things that we need to be able to work together and not point fingers to refugees, migrants as a source of problems in Ireland, of which there is that kind of mindset and thinking and narrative that we've got these problems because of these people. Until you eradicate that mentality, you will be able to find solutions so that people can live in harmony. That is our goal at MASI, to make sure that people that are new in the country, they are embraced, they embrace the culture, they share their own culture, they share their own experience, they share their dance and live together.
It's been really inspiring to see all the different work that MASI does. There's lots I want to pick up on there. So first, to talk a little bit more about direct provision, especially for lots of our listeners won't be as familiar with Ireland and some of the systems there. So what was life like for people under direct provision, and what was the impact as well on families, because young children as well would also be living under direct provision? So what impact does that have on someone living like that?
Well, I leave that system. It has got a negative impact on people. I decided to act, it's a coping mechanism for me to speak to people. And a lot of people suffer from boredom, from not being able to do anything. It was a system whereby you eat, you sleep, you eat, you sleep for many, many years. There are people, when I came in 2013, there were people who were in the system from when it started in the year 2000. So they were already over 10 years in the system and they were already screwed up by the system. Their minds were already accepting the fact that this is the way of life. And it's painful for a child that has never seen their mother going to work, that have never seen their mother cooking their own meals. They have not seen their mother preparing that container for the lunch that they are going to bring to school. It's embarrassing for the child to open that lunchbox in front of the others in the class because theirs will be nothing in it, just a dry bread. Some of the children would leave their containers in the bus that takes them to work because they are embarrassed to share that with their fellow children. And also the fact that the painful thing, which is still happening now, is that a child who is in direct provision will be in the same class with the other, maybe Irish children. And there are classes or educational tours that would, from time to time, schools arrange. But it gets painful when a child who is in direct provision, still waiting for the mother or the father to get the papers, the school has got a trip to UK or wherever, but that child cannot be able to go. We've seen a lot of children's hearts broken by the fact that the class is going outside the country, but you cannot be able to go. So when they come back and talk about what their experience was, you're sitting in that corner crying that you have missed out your own kind of experience, a lifetime experience, being in another country, meeting with other students. That's a learning on its own. It's a lifetime learning, which direct provision deprives these children to have a proper growing environment. So you will be also in a room, three children, two parents sharing one room for a long, long time. And they don't see anything wrong with that. I'm not talking about toddlers, I'm talking about grown up children, teenagers sleeping in the same room with their parents. You tell me what kind of society we are going to be in the future when these children are grown up. These things might not affect them visible now, but as they are growing up, as they have grown up in the future, these things will haunt them, will come back to haunt them, because you can leave direct provision, but direct provision doesn't leave you. Anyone that has gone to the system, they are looking forward to get out of that direct provision, but the system will never leave that individual. It will never leave that individual. That is the negative impact of direct provision. The only thing that I always say to people when I speak to people who are in direct provision, the only positive thing about direct provision is that it's a multicultural kind of setup whereby we create friends from everywhere in the world. We are able to understand and live with each other in these centers. It gives us that opportunity to learn these cultures very, very quickly, because you are in the same space with a person that is coming from the north, from the south, from the west, everywhere. And you start to respect other people because of the understanding of their upbringing and their culture, behaviors, and all that. You start with those and you become a better person when you do that. So this direct provision was established in 1999 and it came into effect in 2000. And they said it's a 6 month trial and we see how it goes. We're still talking about it now. And they were saying that because of the numbers and all that, they made it so hard because there is a proven research by Dr. Liam Thornton from UCD that made that conclusion that the direct provision, the intention was to deter people from coming to Ireland, because you come to Ireland, you're not going to be able to work. You come to Ireland, you're going to be sitting in a hostel doing nothing. And indeed, the numbers started dropping. And all these laws that they bring now and then, like in 2004, they came with the law of the citizenship declaration, whereby if a person who is born in Ireland, but born by the parents who are not Irish, cannot be Irish. That was a racist law. So all these laws that they bring together, they bring to separate people. They bring laws that will favor the Irish people and disadvantage any person that is new. Sometimes I look into what they do here. I come from South Africa and I grew up in the apartheid. The apartheid regime used to deliberately create laws overnight to make sure that whatever that has happened on the ground in the blacks community, there is a law that prevents them from doing that. They would create laws. So in that time when the numbers were increasing and the people would get citizenship, they said, no, we need to stop this and find a legal way to stop it and have a referendum and bluff people. And people signed and it became a law and they are stuck with it now. And it's a racist law. It's a racist law. So that was the apartheid mentality, is to separate people.
I was going to ask actually what you thought the role of racism was, because so much of how the government talks about refugees is people seeking safety, and the language that politicians and the media use is so far away from talking about the human being that they should be talking about. Do you think racism plays a role in cruelty to try and deter people?
It is. It is. There's no other way to describe it. I mean, this was evident with regard to the crisis that happened in Ukraine, for instance. So when the crisis happened in Ukraine, the officials here, when we started complaining about the treatment by the government, they even said that if something is happening to your neighbor, you react differently than when it happens elsewhere. It's a statement that is irresponsible in a crisis like this, where so many people throughout the years have gone through the system, being painfully made to wait for years in this system. And when this crisis came, thousands and thousands of people, they were able to smooth their way in terms of their right to work, their access to funds, access to education. They even brought their own pets, which is not allowed in our system. It's in the rules. No pets allowed. They even brought their pets. Obviously, we are always saying that we are sympathetic and in solidarity with everyone that is suffering from any conflict, war in their countries. We are in solidarity. But it's important that the officials must strike a balance. It's not the first crisis that they have to deal with. Palestine is forever a crisis. Nobody from Palestine is treated differently here. Afghanistan, Syria, Yemen, Libya, Ethiopia, Mogadishu, DRC. It's the same conflict, people fleeing. And even when they have been declared that they are refugees, they still don't get the first class treatment that the white Ukrainians, our friends, as I said, nothing against that nation, but the treatment should be equal. If you are in a position of power, we need to see the equality in treatment of people. Because once people are here, they are all the same and they are safe here. You're creating these unnecessary divisions on the ground because this one is already been seen as the important one to the other. On the ground, I go to these centers in County Mayo, for instance, where there are refugees from Ukraine and there are refugees and asylum seekers from the other countries. There you can see a clear line of division in terms of treatment, a clear line of division. The others are important, the others don't matter. It's all racism. It's all racism. There's no other way you can name it.
It's just so disgusting. I thought it was really inspiring to learn about MASI when you were talking about how inclusive different people and coming to understand other cultures was, how it's not hierarchical, it's democratic, it's collective. It's a very big contrast to the oppressive systems that have led to things like direct provision. So can you tell us a bit more about the structure, the organization, why that's so important to the work that MASI does?
Yeah, you see, from day one, we did not want a situation where people are blocked by the system. We were already blocked by the system. We're already oppressed by the system. So it's important that from our side, when you are at MASI, you don't feel the oppression that there is risk rule. All we say at MASI, because we don't have subscribed membership. Our policy is if you are an asylum seeker in Ireland, you are a member of MASI by being an asylum seeker. And you can come and share your skills in whatever way that you can. And all we need from people is the will and the availability. We don't stress people about the ability because we believe everyone is capable of doing one thing if they are given an opportunity and they are willing to do that. There is a talk that is, we just throw it in the meeting. We hold meetings every Tuesday, massive meeting. Every week on Tuesday, we have meetings. All those meetings, they are averaging 150, 160 every week. And whenever we get anything, any duty that needs to be done, we throw it in the meeting. Who wants to take this? Who wants to take this? And people grow in that way. They grow in that process because we don't have somebody that will be monitoring people. Are you doing this? Are you doing? Because we are not funded. We don't have much funds. We raise funds as and when. And it's very important that we don't have a ceiling that stops people from growing. So you can be one day in the country. When I went last week, I went to a place in Castle Bar in Mayo. There's a new lady there who's got the will, who's got the zeal to organize. He's got the organization skills to organize locally. She organizes people. By the time I went there to address the residents, they already knew about MASI, and she mobilized and people came in the meeting and we addressed them face to face. And it makes life easy for her now after our chat there and people get to know more about what MASI can do. because we are not a charity. It's not about what we can do for the people, it's about what we can do together. That is the most important part with us. Our attitude is that what can we do together instead of what can I do for you? Because that spoils people's minds and creativity and authority, that you need to wait for somebody to do things for you and not engage in things that can be able to work together. Like if you are working with communities, for instance, some people make mistakes of going to communities and saying that they are going to help communities. You know, solidarity does not have help. There's a quote by Leila Watson, Australian, says, if you come here to help, you are wasting your time. But if you come because your struggles are entangled with mine, we can sit down and work together. That must be the mentality in terms of solidarity. Solidarity is what we need. Charitable attitude is not what we need. We got to teach people to fish instead of fishing for them.
I love that approach. I think that's just so important and so lacking very often in society, to trust people and to empower people. So the work that MASI is doing, you want to end direct provision, end deportations. What's the path ahead? What do you think is your realistic goals that you're trying to achieve next? And what would be the dream? What would be the final goal?
Well, the final goal is that people firstly need to have their papers. And once they have their papers, people need to be able to live their own lives without any control of anybody. Even if they are still waiting for their papers, they need to be able to have that part. That is what we want. The goal is to make sure that people that come in the country are taken seriously so that they can be able to fulfill their potential, because they were somebody somewhere at one time until something happens to them that alters their lives. So when they are here, we need to enhance those goals, those aspirations that people have, and not just fry them and freeze them somewhere until we decide that now it's okay for you to go. You know, people feel that they have no chains around their feet, but they are not free. So that is the utmost goal, that people must live their own lives. People must just be allowed to live on their own and not being cramped in these confines. And when you put people together, you are bound to find all sorts of problems. Housing is one of the things that can solve problems, with working together with the people from the housing communities to make sure that it's not them and us, it's us together. And if I could stop the tap that feeds the people that own these buildings, these hostels and hotels, if I could stop that tap, people will be free. Because if people, that money is channeled to people to help individuals, the state will pay less if they would assist people in terms of getting their own space and give them the allowance to be able to find their feet until a person is fully employed, business wise, whatever. Until such happens, there won't be any peace in terms of people's aspirations.
Absolutely. I was going to ask, well, with the 39 centres in Ireland, all of them are privately managed, I understand. I think all but 7 are privately owned as well. Is money an object here? Is profit preventing the government doing more about this?
It's the direct provision exists because there are capitalists that enjoy money. It's a money make. It's gold. Yeah, it's gold. Direct provision. Hotels have closed here because they have seen gold in immigration. A hotel that has always reported negative in terms of profit, as soon as they get into the asylum process, they are flying. And they change everything about their own operation because this money is guaranteed. High season, low season, there's no difference. It's guaranteed, it's there. The pandemic hit the industry so much, the hotels, because of the fact that they could not operate normally. When the country opened, most of the hotels jumped into housing people that are coming in the country. And the government were happy to do that. And once their books were balanced, like for instance, I make an example of Crown Plaza. Crown Plaza is a big hotel that was housing about more than 350 people. And you know the charge that they charge the government for taking people. They charge 100 euros per person per night. There can be 3 people in that room. they will charge 100 per person per night. So for the whole year of 2021-2022, that hotel made about 12,600,000 euros for 1 year, recovering from the losses from the pandemic. Now they decided to do away with that contract. They're going back to their normal operation because now they have enough money on their suspense accounts that they can be able to go ahead with their own operation now because they've eaten the money. So it's the money issue that keeps direct provision like this, because you wouldn't hear about it, but I'm sure there are kickbacks, commissions on signing contracts or whatever. The government and these owners, they all one WhatsApp group. So the money drives everything, while people's misery continues to be worse. Mental health, suicide. Nobody cares about the human factor. Nobody cares about that. They care about their money. The back pocket is heavy.
Yeah. Just as a final thing for our listeners, anything else that you'd like to say to our listeners about your work and anything that our listeners might be able to do to get involved if they want to?
Yeah, okay. What I can say to people that are listening is that please do support people, do support MASI wherever that you are, even if it's a call to us, because as I said, we are not funded by anybody. We depend on the public to even raise funds for us. You can go to our website and put $1 or so. That helps in terms of the drive that we have for education. We have an education fund that we are setting up. And we do also help people that are new to education in terms of the resources, laptops. We buy laptops for them so that they can engage and reposition themselves. We do pay their fees. The money that we get, it is channeled back to the people because there's no person that is a paid staff member in MASI. Everyone is a volunteer, and the money goes to people as education and information sessions that we have. So the message is do support organizations, small organizations like us. And let's put pressure on government and make them accountable on the promises that they make to people and turn the agenda upside down so that our issues are on top and not the last when everybody is tired. They will talk about immigration. We need to change the agenda and put us top there when they're still fresh and address these issues. All I can say to people, thank you for those that are following us, supporting us. Keep on doing that. It motivates us. Without you, we are nothing. Let's fight together peacefully. Equality must always prevail.
It's a brilliant, brilliant message. Full solidarity to you and everyone in MASI with all the work that you're doing. And finally, thank you so, so much for coming on the Rebel Justice podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
If you'd like to support MASI and the incredible work they do, you can go to their website, masi.ie, that's masi.ie, and click the Support Us tab across the bar at the top. Join us next week for the final episode of our Refugee series, where I'll be speaking with Parwana Amiri, a poet and refugee from Afghanistan who moved to Europe to become an activist for the rights of refugees, as well as sharing her story and her experience through her fantastic poetry. That's next week. Thanks so much for listening to the Rebel Justice podcast.